Welcome back to The Basement. I'm Steve Lewis. Today we wind up our look at the third quarter of 1969 with television and news, including some pop cultural news in the months of July, August, and September. And I'm sure most of you are way ahead of me in knowing that the summer of 1969 was particularly eventful. Released in the US on July 7th is Give Peace a Chance, a single by John Lennon and Yoko Ono recorded during their recent bed-in in Montreal. Though credited to the Plastic Ono Band, it's seen as the first serious commercial solo release by a Beatle, everything prior having been either a soundtrack or an avant-garde experimental recording. Of course, it fuels further rumors that the group are breaking up, though the familiar Lennon-McCartney composing credit still appears on the label. The single will hit number 14 on September 6th. On July 16th, on a beautiful Florida morning, Apollo 11 lifts off, sending astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins on what is planned to be mankind's first landing on the moon. 3.5 days later, on July 20th, Armstrong and Aldrin enter the lunar landing module, the Eagle, and after some tense moments finding a suitable site, successfully land on the surface of the moon. Several hours later, Neil Armstrong becomes the first man to set foot on the moon. Millions are watching on television, and I'd venture to say everybody who was around at the time remembers where they were at that moment. Armstrong and Aldrin will spend a little more than 2.5 hours on the lunar surface and return safely to the command module about 21.5 hours after they departed. On July 24th, the crew returned to Earth, splashing down about 900 miles southwest of Hawaii. President Nixon is on hand to greet the crew and make a statement. As a precaution, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins are kept in quarantine for the next 21 days. On July 25th, Senator Edward Kennedy gives a televised address on what had become known as the Chappaquiddick incident. As had been widely reported over the last few days, Kennedy had attended a party on Chappaquiddick Island, Massachusetts on July 18th. He had left with former Robert Kennedy campaign worker Mary Jo Kopechne late that night. Kennedy had driven his car off a one-lane bridge into a deep pond and Kopechne had been killed. Naturally, there were rumors that Kennedy had been driving drunk and or been having or planning some kind of affair with Kopechne. Naturally, Kennedy denied both accusations. What could not be denied was that Kennedy had fled the scene of a fatal accident in which he was the driver and failed to report it to the police for at least 9 hours. In a solemn address, Kennedy says that his actions after the accident were indefensible, that he had been in a state of confusion, and that now his actions, quote, make no sense to me at all. He does not resign as U.S. Senator from Massachusetts. On August 9th, news broke that a horrifying mass murder had taken place overnight in Beverly Hills. 5 were dead, including actress Sharon Tate at her home. A second, similar murder takes place the next night, leaving 2 more dead. The gruesomeness and apparent random nature of the killings leaves Los Angeles terrified. The Beach Boys in their circle certainly would have immediately recognized the scene of Tate's murder as the home until recently occupied by their friend, record producer Terry Melcher. On the weekend of August 15th through the 18th, a music festival on an unprecedented scale takes place in Bethel, New York, drawing an estimated audience of 450,000. The Woodstock Music and Art Fair is billed as 3 days of peace and music. Unsurprisingly, the organizers are unprepared for the huge numbers of people that turn up and scramble through the weekend to keep everyone fed, watered, and as comfortable as possible under the conditions and with the intermittent rain. The crowd is amazingly peaceful throughout it all, surprising many who predicted it would end in disaster. Instead, it's largely 3 days of peace and music, even under difficult conditions. Almost immediately, it's seen as a watershed event and a triumph for the young American counterculture. Among the many musical acts making lasting impressions are Richie Havens, Santana, Sly and the Family Stone, The Who, Joe Cocker, Country Joe and the Fish, Janis Joplin, The Band, and Jimi Hendrix. Making their second ever concert appearance is the new supergroup trio Crosby, Stills, and Nash, who play an enthusiastically received set. Joining them on stage is Stephen Stills' former Buffalo Springfield bandmate Neil Young, who had joined the group in July. On September 13th, John Lennon makes a solo concert appearance as the leader of the Plastic Ono Band at the Toronto Rock and Roll Revival Festival. In this case, the Plastic Ono Band consists of John, Yoko, Eric Clapton, Klaus Voormann, and Alan White on drums. The news naturally fuels continuing Beatles breakup rumors. Turning now to television, here are some of the notable and not so notable shows of the fall 1969 television season. New on NBC Sunday nights, right after The Wonderful World of Disney, is The Bill Cosby Show. Having finished his run on I Spy a year earlier, Bill Cosby returns to series TV in a sitcom, playing high school basketball coach Chet Kincaid. It'll get good ratings, ending the 1969-70 season in 11th place overall, and will run until 1971. Also new on Sunday nights is To Rome with Love, a half-hour sitcom starring John Forsythe as a widowed college professor who moves to Rome with his 3 daughters. It's produced by the same team who brought us My Three Sons and Family Affair and has a similar look and feel. It's on CBS between Lassie and The Ed Sullivan Show. It'll last 2 seasons. Faring less well for CBS at 9 p.m. will be their replacement for the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. The comedy variety series The Leslie Uggam Show will become another in a long line of shows failing to hold an audience against NBC's Bonanza. The Leslie Uggam Show will end in December. Following Bonanza on NBC is the new The Bold Ones. It's an umbrella title for 4 alternating separate drama series: The Doctors, The Lawyers, The Law Enforcers, and The Senator. The shows will be dropped one by one over the next year or two, with only The Doctors lasting until January 1973. New on Monday nights is My World and Welcome to It, kicking off primetime at 7:30 ahead of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. It's a half-hour sitcom based on the cartoons of humorist James Thurber and includes animated transitions. If you like your humor with a wry delivery, this is the show for you. And television stalwart William Wyndham, who stars in the series, can really dish it out. It'll run for 1 season. Not surprisingly, ABC has the most new shows since it has by far the fewest hits. Their entire Monday night lineup is new with The Music Scene, The New People, The Survivors, and Love American Style. It's clearly designed to appeal to a hipper crowd. The Music Scene even has the Rolling Stones appearing in their promos. The first episode on September 22nd features James Brown, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Buck Owens, Oliver, Three Dog Night, and Tom Jones, and a film for the Beatles single, The Ballad of John and Yoko, which includes footage from their unfinished film project from the beginning of the year. Between the hipsters watching Laugh-In on NBC and the squares watching Gunsmoke and Here's Lucy on CBS Monday nights, ABC seemed destined to lose. The Music Scene, The New People, and The Survivors will be gone by January 1970. Love American Style is a comic anthology series about love and romance, and pretty risque by the standards of the times. Typically, there will be 2 or 3 stories per episode with well-known guest stars and blackout comedy skits in between. It'll be moved to Friday nights, retooled, and cut to a half hour for the 70-71 season, then return to its original 1-hour format in the fall of 71. It'll stay on the air until January 1974. On Tuesday nights, the new Debbie Reynolds show on NBC seemed to be their attempt to replicate the success CBS found last year with the Doris Day Show. It's another sitcom scheduled between returning series I Dream of Jeannie and Julia. It'll only last 1 season. Another new sitcom on Tuesday nights is The Governor and JJ, starring Dan Daly as widowed Governor William Drinkwater and Julie Summers as his free-spirited daughter JJ, who also works in a zoo. It's on CBS at 9:30 following The Red Skelton Show. It'll run until December 1970. Also on Tuesday nights, ABC premieres 2 shows that will fare much better than their Monday night lineup: The Movie of the Week and Marcus Welby, MD, a medical drama starring Robert Young as kindly experienced Dr. Welby and James Brolin as brash, young, caring Dr. Stephen Kiley. It'll do very well for ABC, running for 7 seasons and ending in 1976. Another new and soon-to-be successful medical series is on CBS Wednesday nights. It's given the plum position between hits The Beverly Hillbillies and Hawaii Five-0. Medical Center stars Chad Everett as dashing young Dr. Joe Gannon and James Daly as Dr. Paul Lochner. It will also run for 7 seasons and end in 1976. Over on ABC, earlier on Wednesday nights, after the returning The Flying Nun, come 2 new and ultimately successful sitcoms, The Courtship of Eddie's Father and Room 222. Both shows are a little more grounded in reality than most sitcoms, with no genies, witches, Martians, or flying nuns, and no country corn like so much of the fare on CBS. The Courtship of Eddie's Father stars Bill Bixby, formerly of My Favorite Martian, Academy Award winner Miyoshi Umeki, and young Brandon Cruz. It's loosely based on the 1963 movie of the same name. It's a gentle sitcom about a father and son and featured a theme song by Harry Nilsson, who is currently having his first hit with Everybody's Talkin' from Midnight Cowboy. The Courtship of Eddie's Father will run until 1972. Room 222, with its setting in a middle-class integrated high school and plots revolving around realistic modern issues, can, in retrospect, be seen as an early precursor to the kind of Norman Lear comedies that will dominate TV in the 70s. It also had a great theme song. It'll run until January 1974. NBC's new Wednesday show is Then Came Bronson at 10 p.m. following the Kraft Music Hall. It stars Michael Parks as Jim Bronson, a rootless man wandering the country on his motorcycle. It certainly seems emblematic of the spirit of the times, though it will only last 1 season. On Thursday, September 18th on ABC, after 5 seasons on the air, Dick Sargent replaces Dick York as Darren on Bewitched. Dick York's chronic back pain from an old injury had left him unable to continue in the role. The series doesn't address the change. They just make a substitution in the opening credits and carry on for what turns out to be another 3 years. A week later, on Thursday, September 25th, opposite Bewitched on CBS, comes the premiere of the Jim Nabors Hour, a musical variety show hosted by Jim Nabors, who had just wound up his highly successful 5-season run as Gomer Pyle USMC. The show also features his former Gomer Pyle co-stars Frank Sutton and Ronnie Schell. It'll do well, ending up as the 12th highest-rated series of the 1969-1970 season. It'll run for 2 seasons on CBS Thursday nights at 8 p.m. following Family Affair. On Fridays, ABC tries out 3 new shows. The Brady Bunch, a family-oriented sitcom from Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of Gilligan's Island. It's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up 3 very lovely girls. You know the rest. It's on ABC Friday nights following Let's Make a Deal. After the Brady Bunch is the new Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, starring Monty Markham and based on the 1936 movie of the same name. It's followed by the returning Here Come the Brides, and the other new series, the variety show Jimmy Durante Presents the Lennon Sisters Hour. Mr. Deeds will last until January 1970. Durante and the Lennon Sisters will make it until July 1970. The Brady Bunch, of course, will become the cornerstone of ABC's eventual kid-oriented Friday night lineup and will run until 1974. Also new on Friday night is Bracken's World, an ensemble drama about the film industry set at the fictional Hollywood Century Studio headed by unseen boss John Bracken. It's on NBC Fridays at 10 p.m. after The Name of the Game. It'll last until December 1970. In kids viewing on Saturday morning, September 6th at 9:30 on NBC, comes a new series, The Pink Panther, based on animated characters created for the opening credits of the 1964 movie of the same name. The fact the characters don't talk requires twice the animation of a regular cartoon and makes them laborious and expensive to create. The Pink Panther will be a huge hit and a breakfast cereal in 1972, which is guaranteed to turn the milk in your cereal bowl pink. For the 1976 season, enough cartoons will be stockpiled by NBC to expand the running time from 30 minutes to an hour and a half. My younger brother loved the show, and I remember hearing the Henry Mancini theme music that played under all the cartoons running on what seemed like an endless loop on Saturday mornings in 76 and 77. In the fall of 1977, the show reverted to its half-hour format. It ran for one more year on NBC before going to ABC for a year. In all, The Pink Panther will run on Saturday mornings for 10 years. Premiering right after The Pink Panther on NBC that morning was H.R. Pufnstuf, a very weird live-action series from Sid and Marty Krofft. It was the bizarre story of Jimmy, his magic golden flute Freddy, Witchy Poo, who was always trying to steal Freddy, and H.R. Pufnstuf, a dragon in white cowboy boots for some reason, and his friends who try to defend Jimmy and Freddy from the witch and her evil cohorts. It'll run for 2 seasons and be made into a feature film. At the same time, ABC is premiering its new animated series, Hot Wheels, based on the hot new toy which had been introduced a year earlier. It follows the adventures of teenage racers whom, the show emphasizes, are responsible drivers. Of course, the complaints aren't so much about the driving as they are about the fact that the show was basically a half-hour toy commercial. A week later, on September 13th at 10:30 a.m., CBS rolls out its new show, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? It will be an immediate hit and eventually one of the most iconic and influential cartoon series of all time. Following Scooby-Doo at 11 a.m., last year's hit show Archie is expanded to 1 hour with the Archie Comedy Hour and added segments with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Finally, on Saturday nights, after a 2-year break, Andy Williams is back on NBC with his 5th musical variety show called The Andy Williams Show since 1957. This version will run for 2 seasons. I hope you enjoyed this. Next time we'll begin wrapping up 1969 with a look at the 4th quarter, the months of October, November, and December. Hope you'll join me for that. As always, I look forward to your comments and feedback on this. Please hit like if you don't mind, subscribe if you haven't. Thanks very, very much for watching. Have a great week. Bye.